I knew something was wrong the moment I walked in. At first, I couldn't put my finger on it, just a strange nagging sensation at the back of my mind, like I had walked into a place I no longer belonged. It was my last shift at Cinertech, a small IT company where I had been working the night shift for the past 2 years. The kind of job where no one really cared if you left, but they still made you finish out your 2 weeks. I wasn't going to miss the long, empty hallways or the hum of the fluorescent lights overhead. I glanced at my phone. 10:04 p.m. a little late, but no one would care. I sighed, swiping my ID at the door. It gave its usual green beep, unlocking with a quiet click. I stepped inside. And that's when I noticed it, the silence. Even at night, there was usually some sound servers humming distant typing from the other overnight techs, the occasional buzz of a vending machine dispensing a soda. But tonight, nothing. The office felt abandoned. I hesitated, shifting my bag on my shoulder. Maybe everyone left early. I walked past the front desk, my footsteps echoing as I made my way down the hallway toward my cubicle. As I passed the break room, I glanced inside. The lights were off, but I noticed something odd. The vending machine screen was blank. Strange. That thing was always on, scrolling through ads for candy bars and sodas. I shook it off and kept walking. By the time I reached my cubicle, my unease had grown into something heavier, something I couldn't ignore. I sat down, powered on my computer, and tried to shake the feeling. And then, as my monitor flickered to life, my stomach twisted. There was a message open on my screen, a chat window. I hadn't opened anything yet. The message was from someone named Greg Knight. We didn't have a Greg, and we sure as hell didn't have a night department. Greg Knight, why did you come back? I stared at the message, a cold prickle running down my spine. I hovered my fingers over the keyboard, hesitating before typing. Me. Who is this? For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, 3 dots appeared. Greg Knight is typing. My breath hitched. Then, Greg Knight. You shouldn't be here. I pushed my chair back so fast it nearly tipped over. I twisted around, scanning the dimly lit office behind me. Rows of empty cubicles stretched into the darkness. No movement, no sounds. Just that same, oppressive silence. I exhaled, trying to calm my racing heart. It's a prank. It has to be. Jason from it, maybe? He liked screwing with people. I leaned forward and typed again. Me. Very funny. Who is this? The message instantly marked as read. Then, another reply. Greg Knight. Look behind you. A sharp chill raced down my spine. I did not look behind me. I could not. Every instinct screamed at me to shut my laptop, to walk straight out the door and never look back. But my body was frozen. And then, the lights flickered. Just for a second, I sucked in a breath, squeezing my hands into fists. No. I turned back to my screen, and my stomach dropped. The message had changed. It was no longer a chat. It was a single image, a grainy black and white security feed of me, sitting at my desk. The camera angle was from above, like the footage came from one of the ceiling security cameras. I stared, my breath shallow. Then, the figure moved. Not me. Something stepped into the frame behind me. Tall, motionless, too blurred to make out a face. I spun around so fast I nearly fell out of my chair. Nothing. The cubicles were empty. The office was still. A cold sweat broke across my skin. My breathing was uneven, shallow. I turned back to the monitor. The chat was gone. The image was gone. Just my normal desktop, as if nothing had happened. I swallowed hard. My body felt wrong, like I was being watched. That was it. I was leaving. I grabbed my bag, bolted from my chair, and headed straight for the exit. But as I rounded the corner, I stopped cold. The glass door to the main hallway. It was locked. That wasn't right. It never locked from the inside. I swiped my ID badge. Access denied. I swiped again, harder. Access denied. My breath quickened. Then, I saw it. The reflection in the glass. Something was behind me. A shadowy shape, too tall, too still, standing in the middle of the office, watching me. My hands trembled. I didn't want to turn around. I could not turn around. I squeezed my eyes shut, gripping the door handle so hard my knuckles turned white. Then, a sound, a whisper. right against my ear. You shouldn't have come back. I whirled around. Nothing. The office was empty. But the whisper had been real. I had felt the breath on my skin. My chest heaved as I turned back to the glass, my eyes scanning my own reflection. And then, the reflection moved. Not me, the other me. It smiled, and the lights went out. I don't remember getting home. I don't remember leaving the office at all. I just remember waking up in my bed. The next morning, I checked my phone. No calls, no messages, like my shift had never happened. Later that day, I searched for news about the office. Cinertech had shut down overnight, permanently. No explanation, no employees on record. As if it had never existed, but I know it was real. Because sometimes, when I check my computer, there's a message waiting. From Greg, Knight. You shouldn't be here. You ever get that feeling like you're being watched? Like something is just there, just outside your line of sight? That's how I felt during my last shift at Brantley Logistics. At first, I told myself I was just tired, stressed from finishing my last day before moving on to a better job. But by the end of the night, I wasn't so sure. My name's Alex, 29 years old. I worked the night shift at a warehouse that handled freight shipments. It wasn't a bad job, but the hours sucked, and the place always felt off, too quiet, too empty, like the kind of place where bad things happen. That night, my final shift started like any other until it didn't. I clocked in like usual, scanning my badge at the side entrance. The warehouse was a massive, echoing space filled with rows of tall metal shelves stacked with crates, pallets, and machinery, the kind of place where the smallest noise felt way too loud. The night crew was always bare bones, just me, a forklift guy named Mark, and our supervisor, Greg, who mostly sat in the office pretending to be busy. Mark was already loading pallets, giving me a lazy nod as I walked past. "Last night, huh?" he called over the hum of the forklift. "Yep," I said, stretching. "One more shift, and I'm free." Greg barely looked up when I checked in. "Make sure you finish scanning those new shipments before you take off. Don't slack just because it's your last day." Typical Greg, but whatever. 8 more hours, and I was done. About an hour in, I was working my way down row 17, scanning the shipments when I heard it. A single knock. It came from deep in the aisle, past the towering shelves where the overhead lights barely reached. I froze, waiting. Then, another knock. Not a random creak, not a rat scurrying around. It was deliberate, measured, like someone tapping a door to get my attention. I turned off my scanner, listening. Hello? Silence. A chill crept up my spine. I shook it off, told myself it was nothing, and kept working. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. I headed to the inventory terminal in the back corner of the warehouse to cross-check a shipment. The screen flickered as I pulled up the list. Everything checked out except for one. A crate listed as received an hour ago was missing. That was impossible. I hadn't even scanned that section yet. I checked the logs. The system showed a barcode scan at 12:14 a.m., but no one had scanned anything at that time. I was on the other side of the warehouse. Mark was on the forklift. Greg hadn't left his office. My stomach twisted. I looked around, suddenly hyper-aware of the emptiness pressing in around me. Then, from somewhere deep in the warehouse, knock, knock, knock. I needed a break. I found Mark near the loading dock, stacking pallets. "Hey, did you scan anything around row 17? I asked. He gave me a confused look. "No. Why?" "There's a shipment logged in that I never scanned." Mark frowned, setting down a clipboard. "Weird. You check the cameras." That was a good idea. The security office had a feed of all the warehouse cameras. If someone had been back there, we'd see it. We walked toward the security office together, but just before we reached the hallway, the warehouse lights flickered. Then the power cut out completely. A second later, the emergency lights flickered on, dim and red, throwing long shadows across the shelves. "Shit," Mark muttered. "That's never happened before." Greg's voice crackled over the radio. "Power's out. Sit tight. I'll check the breaker." I was about to respond when I heard it. A noise in the darkness. Not a knock this time. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate. Coming from row 17. Mark and I stood frozen, listening. The footsteps echoed, moving through the aisles, just beyond the reach of the emergency lights. I swallowed hard. "There's no one else here, right?" Mark shook his head. Just us. The footsteps stopped. Somewhere out there, in the maze of shelves, something was standing still, watching. Then, in the thick silence, knock, knock, knock. Greg radioed in, saying the power was coming back. When the overhead lights flickered on, Mark and I bolted for the security office. The room was small, lined with monitors showing grainy black and white footage from the warehouse. Greg was already there, staring at the screens, his face pale. "What's wrong?" I asked. Wordlessly, he pointed to camera 6, the one overlooking row 17. There, between the towering shelves, was a figure. It stood perfectly still, facing the camera. The screen resolution was bad, but something about it wasn't right. Its limbs were too long, its head tilted at an unnatural angle. Then, as we watched, the figure took a step backward, not turning, just sliding away, deeper into the shadows. Then, it was gone. Greg shut off the monitors. "We need to check that aisle." I wanted to argue. Every instinct told me to leave, but Mark was already walking toward the exit. I followed, heart hammering. As we stepped into the warehouse, the silence was deafening. We made it to row 17. Nothing. No footprints. No sign anyone had been there. Then Mark turned a corner and never came out. "Mark?" I called. Nothing. I ran around the shelves. He was gone. No sound. No sign of struggle. Just gone. I stumbled back, my mind racing. Then I heard it. A whisper. Right behind me. I ran. I don't even remember getting back to the security office. Greg was already grabbing his keys. "We're leaving," he said. I didn't argue. We bolted for the side entrance, but as we reached the door, knock, 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 right behind us. Greg yanked the door open, and we sprinted to the parking lot. We never looked back. The next day, the company called the cops. No sign of Mark. No security footage of what happened after the power outage. They found something, though. Near row 17, wedged between the shelves, was Mark's scanner. The last item he logged, a crate. No barcode, no shipping details, just a note in the system. Received, one new item. No one ever found out what it was. I never went back. I should have left earlier. I kept telling myself that, over and over, as I sat in my car outside the nearly empty office building. It was almost midnight, and the only other vehicle in the lot was my manager's rusted old sedan parked near the side entrance. I exhaled and rubbed my temples. "Just finished the night, Alex. You're almost free." This was supposed to be my last shift. I had given my notice 2 weeks ago, ready to move on from the soul-sucking monotony of night shifts. Data entry for a small insurance firm wasn't exactly my dream job, but it had paid the bills while I figured out my next move. Now, sitting in the dark parking lot, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I tried to dismiss it as exhaustion. One last night, that's all. I grabbed my bag and headed inside. The office was too quiet. Normally I worked with at least one other person, sometimes Jason from it, or Maria from accounting, catching up on work. But tonight it was just me. Well, me and Greg, my manager. His office door was ajar, the glow from his computer monitor, the only light in the hall. "Hey, Greg," I called as I passed by. Silence. I paused, peering inside. Greg was sitting at his desk, staring at his screen. He didn't move. For a second, I wasn't sure he'd even heard me. Then, without looking away from his monitor, he muttered, "Didn't think you'd come." I forced a chuckle. Last night, couldn't miss it. No response. I shifted awkwardly. "You good, man?" He finally turned his head toward me. But something about his movement was wrong, too slow, like it took him extra effort just to turn his neck. His eyes didn't meet mine. He stared past me, his expression blank. Then, almost mechanically, he mumbled, "Let me know if you need anything." I swallowed and nodded. "Yeah, sure." Something in me wanted to keep talking, to ask if he was okay, but instead, I walked away. I settled into my cubicle and powered up my computer. The glow from the screen illuminated my little corner of the office, but the rest of the floor was eerily dark. Routine took over. I started inputting data, mindlessly clicking through spreadsheets. Then, out of the corner of my eye, my monitor flickered. For just a second, the spreadsheet disappeared, replaced by something else. A single sentence in a plain, black font. "You shouldn't be here." I blinked. The spreadsheet was back. My breath hitched. Had I imagined that? I hesitated, then checked the browser history. I shook my head, trying to ignore the chill creeping up my spine. Just push through. A few more hours. I kept working. The building creaked as it settled, a noise I'd gotten used to over time. But then, something else. A whisper, faint, just behind me. I froze. The office was empty. I was sure of it. Slowly, I turned around. Nothing. The rows of cubicles stretched into the darkness, their shadows deep and unmoving. I exhaled, rubbing my arms. The aches must have kicked on. I suddenly felt cold. Shaking my head, I went back to my screen. I forced myself to focus. Then, tap, 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 a rhythmic tapping sound, coming from somewhere deeper in the office. I turned my head toward the hall leading to the break room. The light inside was flickering. I didn't want to check. Every nerve in my body told me not to move, but something pulled me forward. One step, then another. I reached the break room doorway and peered inside. The light buzzed, flickering wildly, and then I saw it, the microwave. The digital screen was filled with the same phrase, repeated over and over, "You shouldn't be here." I staggered back, heart pounding. And then, from behind me, a breath, close, too close. I spun around. Nobody was there. I couldn't take it anymore. I needed to tell Greg. I hurried down the hall, past the cubicles, straight toward his office. His door was still slightly open. "Greg," I called. "Something weird is happening." I stopped cold. Greg wasn't at his desk anymore. His chair was turned away, facing the dark corner of the room. Something about the way he was sitting, rigid, unnatural, made my stomach twist. "Greg," I tried again, softer this time. Then, his chair moved. Not all at once, but inch by inch, like someone was pushing it from behind. I took a step back. My pulse roared in my ears. Then, Greg's voice. Low, garbled. "It's watching us." I turned and ran. I grabbed my bag, bolted down the hall, and sprinted for the exit. I shoved the handle. Locked. I fumbled with my key card, scanning it against the reader. Beep. Access denied. My breath came in short, panicked gasps. I pounded on the door. "Hello? Somebody let me out." No answer. Then, the overhead lights cut out. The entire floor plunged into darkness. The only light now came from Greg's office. And then, from the shadows, footsteps. Slow, deliberate, coming from the hallway, getting closer. I pressed myself against the glass door, my entire body trembling. The footsteps stopped. I couldn't see anything in the dark, but I could feel it. Something was there, watching me. Then, a voice, low, raspy. "You shouldn't be here." A single breath on my neck. I turned, expecting something to be standing right behind me, but there was nothing. Just Greg's voice from the darkness. "You let it in." The lights flickered, and for the briefest second, I saw it. A figure, tall, hollow-eyed, mouth stretched too wide, and then darkness. I don't remember leaving the building. I don't remember how I got home. All I know is that I woke up in my apartment, the morning sun streaming through the windows. My phone had dozens of missed calls from work. I didn't answer any of them. Later that afternoon, I checked the news. A fire. The office had burned down overnight. The cause? Unknown. No survivors. They never found Greg's body. And I never told anyone what happened. Because sometimes, I wake up in the middle of the night, and in the shadows of my bedroom, I swear I see it. Still watching. I should have called in sick. I almost did. Something about that night felt wrong before I even left my apartment. Maybe it was the way my stomach twisted as I put on my uniform, or the strange, unsettled feeling that had been growing in the back of my mind all day. But it was my last shift. I wasn't about to burn a bridge on my way out. Looking back, I wish I had. I worked as a night janitor at a mid-sized corporate office downtown. Nothing glamorous, but it paid the bills. The building had 4 floors, and I was responsible for all of them. Normally, I worked with another guy, Miguel, but he quit last week, leaving me to finish my last few shifts alone. It was a simple routine. Empty trash cans, vacuum the carpets, clean the bathrooms. The office was empty at night, just me, the hum of vending machines, and the occasional flicker of security cameras. Tonight was supposed to be easy. One last shift, then I'd be free. So why did I feel so uneasy? The night started off normal enough. I worked my way through the first 2 floors without issue. But as I stepped into the elevator to head up to the third, I hesitated. Something felt off. The elevator was an old, sluggish thing, the kind where the doors took too long to close and the overhead light flickered when it moved. But tonight, as the doors slid shut, I swear I heard something a whisper, not words, just a faint, breathy sound, like someone exhaling right next to my ear. I turned fast, expecting to see someone behind me. Empty, I exhaled, shaking it off. It's just your mind messing with you. The elevator jerked upward, the fluorescent light flickered. And then, for just a second, as the doors opened onto the third floor, I saw something. A figure, standing at the far end of the hallway, motionless. The doors opened fully, and nothing. The hallway was empty. I swallowed hard. Just your imagination. I stepped out anyway. The third floor was always the creepiest. Unlike the others, it had fewer cubicles and more private offices. It also had a conference room with a massive glass wall that reflected the dim emergency lights. Walking past it always made me uneasy, like I was being watched by something in the reflection. I tried to ignore that feeling as I started emptying the trash cans. Then I noticed it. One of the private office doors slightly open. That wasn't right. I always check the doors before starting my shift. They were supposed to be locked. I stood there for a moment, staring at the sliver of darkness beyond the doorframe. Had I just missed it earlier? Slowly, I reached out and nudged it open. The office was empty. Nothing but a desk, a chair, and a computer monitor in sleep mode. I exhaled, shaking my head. You're overthinking everything tonight. I turned away and froze. In the reflection of the conference room glass, I saw it, the office behind me, and someone standing inside it. Tall, motionless, head tilted slightly, as if watching me. My breath caught in my throat. I spun around. The office was empty. I stared into the darkness, heart hammering. There had been someone there. I saw them, didn't I? I shut the door, locked it, and then I got the hell out of there. I took my break on the first floor, sitting in the break room with a soda from the vending machine, trying to shake the nerves. That's when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something made me answer. I put the phone to my ear. At first, there was nothing, just static. Then, "Why are you still here?" A whisper, low, hollow. I stood up so fast my chair scraped against the floor. "Who is this?" The line went dead. I stared at my phone, pulse pounding. A prank? A wrong number? The unease that had been sitting in my chest all night tightened into something colder. I wasn't alone in the building. I forced myself to keep working. One more floor, then I was done. The fourth floor was mostly storage, old filing cabinets, unused desks, a few forgotten boxes. I moved quickly, wanting to be done. Then, halfway down the hall, I looked up and saw a figure. At the end of the corridor, near the emergency exit, too far to make out clearly, but definitely human-shaped. Not moving, just standing there. A horrible, frozen silence stretched between us. Then, it took a step forward. I backed away fast, nearly dropping my trash bag. "Hey, who's there?" No response. Another step. A horrible, jerky movement, like its limbs didn't work right. I turned and ran. I didn't stop until I was in the stairwell, my breath ragged. I fumbled my keys, practically sprinting down the stairs, forcing myself to look back. The figure was at the top of the stairs, staring down at me, not moving, just watching. I bolted for the first floor. I ran straight for the front doors, shoved them, locked. That didn't make sense. I had unlocked them when I came in. I grabbed my keys, hand shaking, trying to find the right one. Behind me, the sound of slow, deliberate footsteps. Getting closer, I jammed the key into the lock, twisting it wouldn't turn. A sound right behind me, a whisper, soft, almost curious. "You shouldn't be here." I turned. Nothing. The lobby was empty. I stood there, heart hammering, breathing hard. Then the doors unlocked. I didn't hesitate. I ran out into the night, not stopping until I was halfway down the block. I turned back once. The office stood there, silent, and in the glass front doors, I swore I saw a reflection. A figure standing inside, watching me leave. I never went back. I didn't even pick up my last paycheck. A week later, I heard the company was hiring a new janitor. I checked the job listing. It said, night janitor needed urgent. Previous employee left without notice. No mention of me finishing my shift. No record of me quitting. Like I had never been there at all. I had 6 hours left. After that, I was done with this place forever. I leaned back in my chair, stretching my arms, listening to the empty hum of the office. 1:12 of my final night shift at Bright Ridge Logistics. One last quiet, uneventful night before I walked away from this soulless job and never looked back. The office was a converted warehouse, big, open, and eerily silent at night. The rest of the day staff was long gone, and my only coworker tonight was Dean, the security guard. He mostly stayed in the front lobby, watching YouTube on his phone. I didn't mind the solitude. It was peaceful in a way. Until tonight. Tonight, something felt different. The air was heavy, thick with a strange stillness. I kept glancing at the corners of the room, expecting to see something move. I shook it off and went back to work. Just a few more hours. The first odd thing happened just after 2. I was halfway through logging shipment records when the overhead lights flickered, just once. Nothing unusual. The wiring in this building was ancient, but then my monitor glitched just for a second. A quick, static ripple across the screen. I frowned, tapping the desk. Come on, don't crap out on me now. I wiggled the mouse. The screen stabilized. I exhaled. Probably nothing. But when I looked back at my screen, my stomach twisted. A message box had appeared. I didn't open anything. The message had no sender, no window name, just a single line of text. Why are you still here? I stared at it, heart thudding. A prank? Maybe Dean messing with me? I tried closing the window. It wouldn't shut. I pressed Cyril Aldel. No response. Then, right before my eyes, the text changed. You need to leave. I pushed back from my desk, my pulse spiking. Then my desk phone rang. A loud, shrill ring cutting through the silence. I swallowed hard. No one ever called this late. I hesitated, then picked up. Hello? Silence. A faint crackling sound, like someone breathing through a bad connection. I gripped the receiver tighter. Dean, is this you? More silence. Then, a whisper, right against my ear. Get out. I slammed the phone down and stood up so fast my chair tipped over. My skin was crawling. This wasn't funny. I grabbed my phone, ready to text Dean. Then my screen lit up. New notification from an unknown number. A single text message. Don't look behind you. My breath caught in my throat. I froze. That awful primal fear, the kind that knows something is wrong, rooted me in place. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, but I had to. I forced myself to turn around. Nothing. Just my empty office. The rows of cubicles. The darkened hallway leading toward the storage rooms. I exhaled shakily, my pulse hammering. This was a joke. It had to be. I grabbed my bag, ready to leave. Then I heard it. A footstep. Slow. Deliberate, from somewhere inside the office. I stopped breathing. The sound had come from the hallway near the storage rooms. I stood completely still, listening. Another footstep. A little closer. I swallowed hard. Dean, I called out. My voice sounded too loud in the empty space. Silence. Then, tap, tap. The sound of fingertips dragging along the wall. A slow, deliberate scraping. My throat went dry. I stepped backward, heart pounding, my legs weak. Then, the lights in the hallway flickered. And for a split second, I saw something move. A shape. Tall. Too tall. Standing at the very edge of the darkness. I blinked. The lights steadied. The hallway was empty. My chest rose and fell in quick, shallow breaths. No. I needed to leave. Now. I grabbed my bag, nearly sprinting toward the front lobby. Dean wasn't at his desk. I glanced around, my panic rising. Dean? No answer. The security monitors were still running. The screens flickered through different angles, empty hallways, the warehouse, my office. Then, I saw something on one of the monitors. The camera feed showed the hallway I had just been in. It was empty. Then, the screen glitched. A dark shape flickered into frame, standing in my office, facing the camera, watching me. I spun around, expecting to see something behind me. Nothing. The office was empty. I turned back to the monitor. The figure was closer now, still facing the camera, still watching me. The screen glitched again, and then the figure wasn't there anymore. I ran to the front door. I grabbed the door handle, locked. No. I swiped my ID. Access denied. I swiped again, my hands shaking. Access denied. Behind me, a sound, a whisper. So close to my ear, I felt the breath on my skin. Don't go. I whirled around, and I saw it. Tall, motionless, standing in the center of the lobby. Not a shadow, not a person, something else. Its head tilted unnaturally, like it was studying me. My whole body went numb. The lights flickered, and then darkness. Aftermath. I woke up at home. I don't remember getting there. I don't remember leaving. But my phone had one new message from my own number. Just 2 words. Still here.